Hello, how's everyone doing? Good. Can everybody applause, say hello? Oh my God. Wednesday, thank you so much for being here. It's a weekday. And I'm always surprised when people come to my shows because I always say, they're not for entertainment. Don't worry, you're going to stay here for an hour and a half. But it's because we're going to tell thoughtful, reflective stories, and it's not just for entertainment. So I want to welcome everyone to Talk Stories. Let me ask you, how many of you are the first time to Talk Stories? Raise your hand. Oh my God, thank you so much. All right, how many of you are the first time to the Chinese American Museum of Chicago? Oh my goodness, almost everybody. So thank you so much for being here. My name is Ada Jen, and this is Randy Kim. We're the co-producers of Talk Stories. The show was started in January 2018. We started out at a collaboration theater, and what we decided to do is really to bring Talk Stories to different community centers because I want to bring people to community spaces. That's one of the purposes for Talk Stories too, so people understand the different Asian American communities, what people are doing, the good work they're doing for the community. And the other thing that I really want to do that's unique about Talk Story is that we don't just have performers, we also want to have community members as tellers because there's important stories that need to be preserved, that need to be recorded. And so these are the two features of Talk Stories. Really is community-based and community-centered storytelling show, and we want community members to come to the show, and so we can bridge the performance art and the community itself. And so I want to thank Mabel Menard, who watched the show at Steppenwood and who invited us. And then I want to invite Ben Lau, the executive director of the museum, for kindly hosting us. Ben Lau, would you take a few words?
And also cell phones off too.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone. My name is Ben Lau, and I am the executive director here. If it is your first time to be at our museum, I hope that you enjoy the event of tonight. If you are the return, our return clients or customers, I thank you. If you are not either our members, I strongly advise you to be our members because we have a numbers of very good, events coming up. We have our Mid-Autumn Festival events. So please consider to be our members. I just hand out our brochures. We have, different layers of members. And some housekeeping thing is that we have one restroom here on this floor. We have two restrooms on the first floor. And on my left-hand side, we have hot tea. We have water. And please enjoy yourself. And again, thank you very much for coming to our event, and thank you for our board directors. Our president is Sulai Mui. Here you are. And our board secretary, Mabel Menard, is over there. And she is volunteering to help us, taking some videos. And again, thank you very much for coming. Please enjoy the rest of the night. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ben. So I'm a teacher. There's something I need to do first. Turn off your cell phone. Turn off your cell phone now before we start the show. I just want to make sure that we're not going to interrupt tellers and performers for the story. So if you can have the phone on mute or doesn't make any sound if possible. All good? All good. Are you ready for the show to start? Very good. So I'm going to have my partner, co-producer, to introduce our first performer.
Thank you, Ada. How are you feeling tonight? So, our first guest is a dear friend of mine, and they are going to leave for LA because they are going to pursue their musical ambitions. Their name is Soltree, aka Stephanie Kamba, and so Stephanie just had an album out called Soltree. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Music, and any streaming services, so it's out now. Please listen to it. And without further ado, before I take any more time, Let me welcome Soltree.
Hi, everybody. How y'all feeling? I'm so honored to be here. I'm so grateful. This is my first time being here at this museum, and I really admire and really am inspired by the work that Ada and Randy are doing and the work that we're going to hear tonight, the stories, the important stories that maybe some of us have never heard before. And this first song that I'm going to sing is called Friendship is the Best Ship, and I want to dedicate it to my friend Randy here. We were just talking yesterday about how they're mourning a friend who recently passed, and I just wanted to honor that friend and, ask us to take a moment to meditate before I get started and inhale a nourishing breath and exhale compassion into the world for ourselves and for our friends, and just deep breathing. Continue that one more time. I also want to acknowledge that our friend Lai came back from Cambodia, so I just want to dedicate this song to you as well. This is amazing. I feel the energy of friendship and connection, even though right now I'm going through some big changes and, wanting to honor the relationships that I have, but also make space for new ones to grow. I hope y'all enjoy. Because I actually wrote this with a really good friend of mine that I met through community organizing, immigrant rights organizing, and we've continued that friendship now that's blossomed into music. It's called Friendship is the Best Ship because it is. How nice it is to see you again, linking up the nightcap, picking up right where we left off. We got arrested for fighting deportations. We're all tired of exploitation, creating our own way. We sing, strum, and sway ourselves back together again. Yet our friendship was meant. Oh, how this music meant. No time lost, no love lost. We've fought for life at all of our costs. We're ending this war, so much to live for. Love is our purpose. What is yours? What is yours? What is yours? This life starts and it ends all over again, and I love to spend my days with hearts like yours, so big and bursting with so much love to share. How beautiful and blessed we care, and I know even when you're not there, your love is right here. It migrates to me without any visa. So grateful to meet you, my friend. No time lost, no love lost. We've fought for life at all of our costs. We're ending this war, so much to live for. Love is our purpose. What is yours? What is yours? What is yours? What is yours? Okay, I got, do I have time for one more song? You think? Or another song, is that okay? Just one more song. This is actually called Not One More. So not one more after this. But this song is about immigrant rights again. And there's a Not One More campaign. How many of you have heard of that campaign? It's about ending the incarceration and deportation of immigrants before we even begin to talk about comprehensive immigration reform, because the time that I was organizing and part of Not One More campaign, the Democrats were trying to push a bill that was allegedly comprehensive immigration reform. And I did that work with Immigrant Youth Justice League, Organized Communities Against Deportations, Tanya over there. I know, I'm sorry, I put you on blast, but I see you. I saw you when I was singing, and I feel the friendship energy. I also feel this sense that we are all tired of the divisions that we've created, the borders we've created through policy, through the way that we don't connect, through the way we can't make eye contact, through the way that we other ourselves and each other. So I dedicate this song to our oneness. But yeah, during those times, I felt really intense, and now I'm just in a place of more compassion for myself and for others, because I see myself more in others, and I'm grateful for everybody doing that work of connection, that work of building. That's really important work, as well as, we're deconstructing things, but we have to reconstruct things, we have to rebuild, we have to heal things, to connect and relate. We come together to undo these unjust laws. No longer blaming each other. The system we know is the cause. Too long divided, we suffer in silence. Now is the time to break out. When our voices were unheard, come and take all of these words we've been chanting our truth so loud. My family fears my work, but I heal with my creations, inspired by the ways we learn to resist from this militarized countries that don't want us to exist. We're joining forces in all areas of life. There is something we could all offer to the light. So think about it long and think about it hard. Know that our resistance is coming from the heart. Now
Don't underestimate my intelligence. Oh my God. This is unusual. Oh, thank you so much. This show, storytelling in different forms. Some stories need to be told through music, and some stories need to be told through personal narrative. Are you ready for our first storyteller? Yes! Gtush. Jackie, recent immigrant from India, just got his green card, and celebration, quit the corporate job to pursue art, creative projects, because he just didn't care anymore. Let's welcome Gtush.
Thank you. Yeah. So, is this good?
Yes.
Anyways, I'm going to try to keep it short so I can get my story across before I exhaust all the 200 English words that I know. This is what I imagine, like when people in America ask me, "Oh, you're an Indian, how do you speak such good English?" So I imagine them thinking, before coming here, I brought a briefcase, I packed some clothes, some nouns, some verbs and adjectives, and I'm like, good morning. So this story is called The Role That the US Immigration Played in Changing My Marital Status. I was in India when I fell in love with my girlfriend who was in America. Whitney and I met each other online, like the faithful, true millennials that we are, on Facebook, and soon took our relationship to the next level by tagging each other on memes and such. Before we realized we had started dating and decided that we were serious enough to take it offline. So, yeah, that's a thing. You should try it. Like I said, I was back in India, she was here in America, and it was still an exciting time. Imagine to go out for one date, you have to book flights all the way to Thailand because you also believe in equality, so you want to make sure each partner comes halfway through. Which actually set a great precedent for our interracial marriage, because in Thailand, especially on the beaches of Pattaya, we saw wonderful examples of 65-year-old white men with their 18-year-old Thai wives, till currency exchange do them apart. Over the next few years, we continued meeting each other over halfway points across the world. Once Whitney even came to visit me in Mumbai, my hometown, where I introduced her to my mother as a foreign business client. Who was assigned to me to be taken care of, which I did very well, I must add. And she decided, okay, now it's good time for me to visit her in America. So I applied for a tourist visa, and I entered the Mumbai office of the US Embassy, which I also call the traveler's super conscience, because they get to decide whether it's the right time for you to take a vacation or not. But the moment I stepped inside the visa office, that's when I realized that if you belong to a so-called third world country, you are looked at as a criminal until proven innocent. The first question that the visa officer asked me was, how do I trust that you won't stay back in the US to seek illegal employment? Now, I wasn't employed at the time, so I wasn't even seeking employment in my own country. Nevertheless, it felt bad. I had been to 5 other countries until that time, and I had always honored my visa terms, and this whole line of questioning seemed bizarre. To give you a parallel, if the US Immigration Office were like a coffee shop, the first question that the barista would ask you would not be, how may I help you, sir? It would be, how do I trust that you won't spill coffee all over your shirt, sir? And some on our lovely American patrons here. Maybe you will burn this cafe down if I give you a hot cup of coffee. And I'm like, because I have prior experience in handling my coffee? Plus I'm paying you. My visa got rejected twice. My money was too cheap for them, my skin too brown, my accent too thick. So we regrouped together, Whitney and I. We did some research. We were heartbroken because we couldn't even meet each other anymore. So we did some research, and we found out that the views that the US Immigration Office held about relationships were far more conservative than my Indian mother. They consider a relationship legitimate only if you're married or engaged. So we decided to beat them at their own game. Instead of a tourist visa, we were now gonna apply as a visa as a spouse. Yeah, is this even worth it? Or should I just? Check, check. Hi, my name is Gtush. How are you doing? All right. That's what you get after going after a singer. Storytellers. Where was I? You guys were listening. This has never happened before. I asked, where was I? They're like, wow. You were in the way of the next storyteller. So, like I said, so this is what they've thought, and we applied for a visa as a spouse. Now you have to understand, for the US immigration cannot keep, the office cannot keep a US citizen away from their spouse, even if they're across borders. No, this was back in the days, pre-2019, where they did not believe in family separation. So we did apply, and because of that, Whitney decided to propose for marriage for official reasons only. So essentially, the US Immigration Office quickened our love affair. This is also good advice for those in the audience, by the way, who have hesitant girlfriends and boyfriends. Get the authorities involved. Works like a charm. So I kind of said yes for official reasons only, and went back to the traveler's super conscience, this time confidently. They recognized me. They saw I have a new visa. They recognized me because by now I was like a regular customer, albeit a customer who's denied service every time. This time, the first question they asked was, why aren't you getting an arranged marriage? For those in the audience who don't know what an arranged marriage is, it's when parents get their offspring and a stranger and demand that they sleep together for the rest of their lives. I said, I'm too old for that. You have to be groomed a certain way. I missed the cut. But they relented. They cannot keep a US citizen away from their spouse. They had to give me the visa. Immediately after which, I came here, and we got married in a courthouse in the presence of a very bored-looking clerk and a judge. But you have to understand, I know this, between the jokes and everything, let's not forget all of this over 2 years. For what? Not for any special privilege, but to exist. Just so I can be here, so two people who love each other can stay together, not for a privilege. It has a happy ending, don't worry. Everybody got serious. I've been raised on enough Bollywood movies to know my closure etiquettes. So, this year I got married for the second time to the same person. Whitney and I flew together to India just so we can get married in the presence of friends and family, so we can, for celebratory reasons instead of official reasons, so we can try out Indian ceremonial wedding and try our Indian traditional wedding garments, which are like regular clothes but on LSD, in the presence of not clerks and judges but on friends and families. And also to establish, for once and for all, that she isn't my foreign business client, but my very, in fact, twice lawfully wedded wife. Thank you, Era.
Very good.
Thank you. Ooh, check, mic check. Oh, spilled a little water there. Cleanup time. All right, so thank you so much, Gtush, and please give another round of applause for Gtush's story. Also, with immigration, the last immigration reform was in 1986, 33 years ago. So it tells you how broken and how outdated the system is. So moving forward, I want to introduce to you our next storyteller, Janaki Modi, who has also been doing storytelling shows, also had a solo storytelling show very recently. And I am very excited, both Ada and I are very excited to have her on here, so please give a warm welcome to Janaki Modi.
Hello.
Why don't we just, let's do this.
I need my hands. I want this. It's okay. I'm going to risk it because I need to talk with my hands. Whatever. What are you? Are you Italian? Are you Greek? Mexican? Do you speak Spanish? Are you white? Black? Mixed? Are you a gypsy? What are you? I'm Indian. Oh, what tribe are you from? I'm Indian, like from India. Oh, you don't look Indian. Well, I am. I was always the only Indian, combating the image of India we were taught in school every year. The caste system, arranged marriage. On one page, a shirtless, dirty brown boy with one sandal. On the other, the Taj Mahal. Now I'm sure there's like some mention of yoga, because what could we even know about India without yoga? No mention in that book of middle-class families where the mom cooks too much and the dad comes home with a headache. That was my lived experience. As a second-generation Asian American, I always had one foot in each culture. Solid footing in neither. You're split. Sometimes right down the middle. Sometimes in a secret spot that you hide away. Maybe you're really good at keeping it to yourself. Maybe you're a good Asian kid, and when you go away to college, you just explode. When I went to college, I became more Asian. Well, I was never really a good Indian to begin with. I did poorly in school. I hated math. I didn't speak the language. I didn't watch Bollywood movies. I had a Western name that made it really easy for me to navigate through all my social circles. I was too white, even though girls in my community circle were bleaching their skin to look like mine. Don't you want to be a doctor? Would you want me to be your doctor? Probably not. I came to Chicago for art school. Did you know that there are a lot of Indian people in Chicago? Like a whole lot. I became a grown-up, and all my different selves got smashed together. I was so Indian when I came to Chicago. I wore Indian clothes and a bindi to school. I learned the Indian national anthem. It's very inclusive and written by a Nobel Prize winner, an artist like me. I fell in love with the India who was beautiful before the objectification of the Western gaze. I decided to change my name, the name of an ancient Indian queen. My feet still in two different cultures, but with stronger footing now. I felt a freedom. I put in the work. I taught myself how to read, write, and speak Gujarati, my mother language. Flashcards always in my pocket. I always had a notebook where I could practice all my handwriting in the car, and I always kept a dictionary with me. Language is tricky, though. Did you know that the word for the Indian merchant class sounds just almost like the word for a prostitute? I made some missteps, but not without reward. Before my grandmother passed away, she and I would lay in bed and gab and chat about whatever we could, because in my 20s, I could finally communicate with her. I can now tell my children stories, imaginative bedtime stories, and make silly songs off the top of my head in a different language. This was a decision and a life choice that I had to make, and it was a great achievement, and no one can take that from me. A month or so ago, a friend of mine brought a new guest to my house. She's a young, perky American-born Indian woman with perfect teeth. She stopped our conversation mid-sentence to say, "You really don't look Indian." Wow, I thought, this hasn't happened in a really long time, years. Well, I am. Are you? I could feel the blood rush to my face. Yeah, I am. I mean, if I could prove it to you, I would. What was that even going to mean? What was I going to get out my birth certificate for her and my parents' birth certificates? I was so mad that I said that. Wow, because you really don't look Indian. I was just a little girl again, trying to figure out if I was brown enough, which box I fit into. It took me a few days to recover from that aggression. As a grown adult, I had to decide again that I am enough for whatever I am. This is really a vulnerable story for me to tell. For scale, I mostly speak on pregnancy loss advocacy, which is something that I also have lived experience of. I have a solo show that is raw, emotional, graphic, but I have more reservations talking about this for some reason. Despite that, I first told this story this summer in what I would primarily describe as a white space. I knew I was putting myself in the way of audience voyeurism, but I wanted to rip the Band-Aid off and just tell the story already. After the show, 4 women separately came up to me to say some version of, "You know, while I was watching you, I was thinking to myself, you really don't look Indian." The 4th time this happened, I just decided to follow the script. "You really don't look Indian." "Well, I am." "Oh, ha, 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 ha. I meant that in a good way." So now I'm in my 30s. I've come to realize that this is just going to keep happening, and it's fine, because I've made the effort that I need to make in my life, and we don't live in a world that's not divisive anymore. So as long as I keep my feet planted strongly in both cultures, I'll be okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janaki. Let me ask you, how many of you have been asked, where are you from? Raise your hand. All right, how many of you have been asked, where are you? Raise your hand. How many of you have been told, you just don't look like? Raise your hand. Look around. Who's being asked? When you say, where are you from? What are you? As much as it's about wanting to know somebody's background, it's also about naming somebody different. The undertone is, you don't quite belong here. You don't fit the mold. You're not the average looking American. Think about that and what that means. Thank you, Janaki. Can we give her? And this is what the show is about. We want to tell Asian diaspora, Asian American stories on our own terms, in our own space, in our own voice, dictated by our own subjectivity and perspective. It's about vulnerability, it's about honesty. Are you ready for our next storyteller? Freddie Mae, I hope I pronounced your name. Oh, very good. Sorry about that. They founded, I have been following you, they founded the show Resilient, which is for survivors of sexual violence. Also now they're the dorm parent for high schoolers for Illinois Math and Science Academy. How do you like that job right now? Oh, I love it. Very good. Let's welcome Freddie Mae.
I guess I can just. Here, let's see if we can. I can't hold two things. I only have two hands.
Oh, thank you so much.
Beautiful. Yay. Thank you. Sorry, everyone else, for not. Yes, perfect. You've correctly estimated my height. I'm feeling a little vulnerable after that story. Raise your hand if you never learned your mother language. I will never stop feeling a little bit ashamed for not knowing Arabic. My parents didn't teach it to me, but they still guilt trip me about it. And I've tried, right? I've tried, not that hard, but I took Arabic in college. I have an app. I use it like 3 times a year. I have it on my phone. It's hard for a language to stick when you're not immersed, when you like don't have anyone to speak it with. You know, the only people in my college class were white people who like could barely pronounce any of the words, let alone like have a real conversation. And it's really hard to learn as an adult. I mostly know the words that did get tossed around at home, which is basically food words and curses. So I just string together gibberish sentences to play pretend that I'm joining in my parents' conversations, like, Hummus ya Allah sarmuta. Do we have any Arabic speakers? That translates to, hummus, my God, that. Which is something I feel passionately about. Which is all in good fun, but I've also lost all 4 of my grandparents and have had very few meaningful conversations with any of them. Last time I tried to run an errand for my mom in Lebanon, I went to the wrong pharmacy, got the wrong amount of medicine, paid the wrong amount of lira, and brought it all home with no idea I had completely screwed it up. Worst of all, possibly, I have no idea what my parents are secretly saying about me when they switch to Arabic. God knows. One of the more recent trips I made to Lebanon, the second to last time I went, it was in 2016, and I set myself a goal so I'd become more comfortable speaking the language. I said if I know a word or phrase in Arabic, I'm going to say it in Arabic, even if it means switching languages mid-sentence, because one of the most intimidating things for me is just even speaking Arabic words around native speakers, because I feel like they're gonna laugh at me. So I decided I would just force myself to get used to it. It was going pretty well. I became a very polite and reticent person because I knew how to say thank you, and I drove that into the ground. I forced myself to stumble over the shame of my American accent, and the words started to feel a little more comfortable in my tongue. I would have conversations with my grandma, my teta, where I would speak in broken Arabic and French, and she would speak in broken English back, and we'd practice together, and eventually feel proud when we reached some semblance of understanding. I would read her newspaper headlines out loud to her very, very slowly, and she got so excited to tell my mom that I knew how to read Arabic. It was only the 4th day of the trip when I got the news. So it was June 12th. Around 11 in the morning, I was lying in bed scrolling through Facebook on my phone. I saw a couple of panicked posts from some friends in Orlando about an active shooter situation in an LGBT nightclub. It was about 2 in the morning there. I watched the updates all day. 23 dead was what the first headline said. And by that evening, when my friends in the States started to wake up and I saw their horrified posts one by one pop up on my timeline, it was 49. I cried in my mom's bedroom. She came and asked me why, and I couldn't believe I had to tell her. I'm crying because 49 people were shot dead, and in a queer, safe space. 49 people were shot, and it's probably because they were like me. Later that night, my dad arrived in Beirut. He picked us up, me and my 3 older siblings, and he took us out for ice cream for dinner. Felt really f***ed up having ice cream for dinner. I had chocolate and raspberry. He took us to my aunt's house next, where we were gonna spend the night. I wasn't really in the mood. I sat in her room and watched the horrifying news cycle, the speculations, the blurry photos, the texts to loving parents. When it got to be too much, I went to spend some time with my dad and my aunt in the living room. I was just cuddling with my dad and chatting. My aunt and I have always had kind of a strained relationship. She really likes to provoke people, and I've tried to build up a thick skin about it, but she knows how to get to me. My dad and I were joking around about something, I don't even remember, and he said something like, boys are gross and smelly, you know, dad talk. And I was like, yeah, I don't like boys. And my aunt chimed in, apropos of nothing, well, it's better than you liking girls, then you won't get shot. And then she cracked up laughing. And I burst into tears and fled the room. I couldn't sleep that night. And the next morning, when I told my mom that I didn't want to be at my aunt's house anymore because she made a joke to me about how I might get killed for being queer hours after the deadliest mass shooting in US history at the time, my mom's response was to ask if I had come out to my aunt. The words she used were just, did you share? Homosexuality is technically against the law in Lebanon. Beirut is known as a gay-friendly city in the Arab world, but it's all secret. All the gay clubs are hidden and move around. I wanted to find one, but not only did I not know how, I was also afraid of what would happen if I did. Everything has to be so covert and careful. I felt so alone. I wanted to be with my community. I wanted people like me to talk to. I wanted to talk to the people around me, but I didn't know any of the words. My grandma and I could barely stumble through a conversation about school. My parents never really liked to talk about my queerness. I came out to my parents as bisexual when I was 12 years old. They reacted with a mixture of apathy and distaste. You'll grow out of it. And why are you telling us this? They were supportive-ish, which mostly meant they just didn't acknowledge my queerness in any way. I would have to remind them over the years just to make sure they knew, just to try to get them to say anything that told me that they saw me. I can't imagine my mom ever telling someone she knows that her child is queer. She thinks that kind of stuff is private. She tells me I should keep it to myself so no one can use it against me, as if it's my responsibility to keep people from hurting me. My parents didn't mind that I was queer, they just didn't want anyone else to know. When I came out to my parents as non-binary a year ago, they couldn't handle it. It was much worse than telling them I was bisexual. Functionally, they'd been able to ignore that, pretend it didn't exist, but now I was asking them to use they, them pronouns for me. That meant that with every sentence, they would need to acknowledge my difference. That meant they would have to admit to their friends and their family that their child was strange. Once again, they responded with a non-response. They didn't even acknowledge what I had said. So I pushed until they engaged with questions and discussion, but then the questions and discussions pretty quickly became lectures and shouting. I was talked over, interrupted, yelled at for being disrespectful. There were eye rolls and heavy sighs. I felt like a teenager. My dad literally told me, I support you, but I'm not going to use your pronouns because I don't want it to affect my social standing. I started dreading my visits home. The last time I visited my parents at their home in Louisiana, I got another lecture from my dad. And at this point, I know to expect them, and I try not to let them get to me, but when there's like 3 or 4 of them in one visit, inevitably every visit ends with my father chastising me while I cry. This time, he told me that when I ask him to use they, them pronouns, when I try to help him learn by correcting him when it comes up, it's like I'm asking him to learn another language. He said, "You're basically asking me to learn Chinese overnight." First of all, okay, using words in the language you already know, not the same thing. Also, my parents know 5 languages. They're so smart. If they decided to learn Chinese overnight, I'm sure they fucking could. And that's the thing, right? They could learn a new language if they wanted to. They could learn my language if they wanted to. When I went to Lebanon again in January this year, I knew I had to be closeted there. I wasn't there for me. I was there to take care of my grandma and help my mom. Once again, I tried my best with my Arabic. Once again, I didn't know the words for me. Every noun, verb, every letter has a gender, male or female. Where would I even begin explaining the concept of gender-neutral pronouns? I barely understood pronouns. Where would I begin telling my grandmother, who was as traditional as they come, that I'm not a girl? So I spent 2 weeks just kind of hiding parts of myself. But my mom and I had some of the best bonding of my life in those 2 weeks, because she didn't have to change the way she presented me and therefore herself to the world. She relaxed, and she treated me like she saw me. She listened and asked thoughtful questions and occasionally made comments that showed me she was on her way to understanding. We talked about everything. In that bubble, it was okay that we were different from each other. In that bubble there, we spoke each other's languages, and we took the time to translate. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you so much, Freddie Mae. Thank you so much. There's so much that I can say to something like this, because we talk about the language shaming, the parental invalidation, and also, unfortunately, the mass shootings of queer, trans people of color. And I will also say with Pulse, it's kind of very fitting, because a couple of years ago, I was going to do my first storytelling show at a queer storytelling event in Andersonville, and I was about to back out of that event because I was too overwhelmed with what had happened a week before that, and the person who I would end up being with storytelling is Ada, and lo and behold, that ended up being a relationship that we are married together for better, for worse. Divorce papers coming? Are we worried? All right, so I'm going to return our next performer again, and Soltree, are you ready for the second round? All right, give it up.
All right, so this last song that I'm gonna do is called We Flow, and I wrote it during a time where I was being mean to my partner, actually, and really, I was staying with an aunt as well, who gets under my skin as well, so I feel that parallel. They just know, especially in the language, when they say it in the language, I'm just like, dang. It hurts. But this song, it's about, interpersonal conflict, but it's also about just how we actually flow together as people in connection with one another and trying to get through, because the more conflicts that I experience as I age, the more that I see and experience this world, I see that the chaos inside me is also reflected in the world. So I'm trying to, do work on, I know that I, as a single person, can't change the laws, but I can control how I respond so I can continue in this world. And I hope to share music that allows people to flow in their own way and to flow with one another, confluence. And even if it is waves crashing against each other, using that as lessons of love and life. In a sultry kind of way, what I'm really trying to say is that I love you. I miss you, and I want us to be cool. They say tomorrow's a new day, and I'm hoping you'll stay one night a day, a night again. Sooner or later, we'll realize we flow, we flow, we flow, we flow, oh, oh, like water. We flow, we flow, we flow in a sultry kind of way. I'm asking if you lay a foundation with me based on justice, trust, and creation of the good for the good of all kinds of beings. We live for this purpose and past lives I'm feeling. Beyond the vessels we found ourselves in, our partnership is so much deeper than skin. I am here, I am here, I am here, I am here, 'cause we flow, we flow, we flow, we flow, oh, oh, like water. We flow, we flow, we flow. These words don't come easily. Silence was beaten into me. I'm trying to speak what I feel. Putting things into words makes the feelings more real. I'm human, what more can I say? 80% water, I flow more than I stay. I sink into the earth and I fly through the sky. If you find me in love, you should know this is why. You should know this is why. We flow, this is Thank y'all. If y'all enjoy the music, you can find me on Instagram, on the internet as Soltree Sound, soltreesounds.com. If you would like a hard copy of the CD, postcards, or some posters, you can flow your way to me after the show. And enjoy the rest of the show. Thank y'all.
A test of my intelligence. Oh, good, good, good. How's everyone doing? Good, good, good. I just want to say I really have a passion of really promoting Asian diaspora, Asian American stories, and this is telling. But I also want to introduce the editor of Rickshaw magazine, Nicole Sumida. Nicole, can you say a few words? And so if you're interested in publishing your stories and personal narrative and fiction and nonfiction, Nicole, can you talk about Rickshaw? Go ahead.
We are two of the members of Rickshaw. We started our magazine in print form in the 90s. And then we took a hiatus, and in early 2017, we relaunched in digital form. So we spell our organization, it's RIKSHA.com, and we accept submissions by and about Asian Americans. So visual art, video, music, audio, nonfiction, fiction, poetry. So works by and about, we welcome. So we can go to our website and you can submit, and we'd love to promote your work. We also have a writing workshop that we've been going on for 4 or 5 years now at Midwest Buddhist Temple. So if you're interested in that, it's on our website as well. And we've been collaborating with different organizations, organizing readings with authors that we know just to get the word out there. So check us out. Thank you so much, Ada.
Of course. You know, for me, it's really, let's just use different platforms and genres to promote our story. Are you ready for our next storyteller? Ben, where is Ben now? Oh, yes. Yeah, I was like, where's Ben? All right. You know who is the executive director of Chinese American Museum of Chicago. And I have to, is this your first time telling story? Yes. Oh. All right, so you'd better be good. You'd better be nice. Let's welcome Ben now. Come on.
Thank you, Ada. Okay, you have to be nice to me. Why would a person want to leave a city where he or she was born, spent his or her childhood, grew up, graduate from college, found a job, got married, and raised children? Indeed, it may be impossible for a person to imagine saying goodbye to a place he or she has called home for a long time. Do you think that decision to leave such a place is a matter of testing one's limits, fostering independence, broadening one's horizons, learning to be alone, making new friends, choosing an optimal place to live, gaining valuable experience, or learning a new language in the best way possible? For me, making such a decision was never easy, even after a period of more than 10 years. Yes, that was the time needed in the 1980s for an immigrant visa for immediate relatives of US citizens to be approved. When I was told by my elder sister, who was living here in the United States, that she had submitted immigrant visa applications for my mother, my sister, my younger brother, and me to reunion with her, I did not take it seriously. I was a teenager who focused only on my school, my schoolmates, my friends, and my spare time entertainment. To reunion with my elder sister in the US seemed to be out of reach for me at that time. Then, it was time to make a decision. After 10 long years, when our immigrant visas were approved. All in a sudden, all the pros and cons of immigration popped up in my head that troubled me for another 9 months. Eventually, my decision was made, not of the reasons I mentioned earlier, but of one simple reason, for the sake of my children. That was in May 1999, about 2 years after Hong Kong, the city where I was born and lived, was returned to China on July 1st, 1997. During the 22-month period, I witnessed changes in the education system that confused many students, teachers, and parents. Being a teacher as well as a parent, I was particularly concerned. I was concerned about the future of my children, and hence my decision. Then I received a letter dated July 21st, 1999, from a moving company. You know what? I still have this more than 20 years old letter, which still looks like new. This letter was to confirm a date being packed by the confirm a date when the porters from the moving company will be coming to my home to pick up boxes of items being packed by me and my wife in the previous month. I will never forget the date. The point of no return, the point of no remorse. The date was August the 10th, 1999, just 3 days before my birthday. The letter, just like this piece of paper, weighed less than an ounce, but represented the space of half a shipping container, which housed all our belongings, which include our clothing, appliances, furniture, and even a piano. It takes about 15 hours to travel by plane from Hong Kong, the city where I was born, to Chicago, the city where I have been living for the past 20 years. It took, however, about a month for the shipment to arrive at our rental apartment, which was yet to be called our true home. Every time I look at that letter, I was reminded of the decision I made to immigrate, leaving behind my friends, my career as a teacher, as well as a news editor, and other achievements established in the years since I started my first job. And then I had to start from scratch on a foreign land here for the sake of pursuing better education for my 3 children. I could still remember the mixed feeling that I had. I was thinking about many unknowns and challenges lying ahead of us. And I also remember that right at the moment I received the letter that I needed to find a job as soon as I set foot on this country in order to support my family, pay my rent, and my bill. In the past 20 years, many things and documents were disposed of due to moving or house cleaning, but this letter is still well kept. It reminds me of a drastic change for me as well as for my family. I started to earn my living in this country by working as an employment counselor with a community-based social service organization located in the heart of Chinatown, serving the Chinese community. I don't want to name of the organization. Along the years, I gradually established my second career through promotions and switching jobs. My job title has been changed to coordinator, program manager, and now executive director. Okay. My children has all grown up, received, or are still receiving good education, and are about to walk on their own path and devote back to the community, and as well as the society. Looking back, was my decision right or wrong? If I were to stay in Hong Kong, I may well be the principal of a prestigious school or the chief editor of a well-known newspaper, and would retire at the age of 60. Here, I have to retire of 67, 66. But on the other hand, my children might have to face stiff competition to get into college or to find a job. given the crazily high property prices in Hong Kong, they may never be able to buy even a nano unit. A unit that is less than 200 square feet, but costs about 4 million Hong Kong dollars, or 725 US dollars. No kidding. On average, before the age of 50, not 30, not 40, but 50, without the help of their parents, that's me. Moreover, they may end up, protesting or rioting in the street with tens of thousands, if not millions of people protesting against the policies of the government that is happening right now. So again, was my decision right or wrong? I think I will leave that for my children to answer. After all, my decision was not about myself. It's all about them and the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Give it up for his debut storytelling. Ben's story reminds me of the idea of what a single paper can do that will affect our survival, our existence. And also, given what's going on in Hong Kong right now, we see a lot of similarities. We look at parallels. Where do you see the parallels? So I would like to introduce to you our next storyteller. So Andy Lee is also a writer. He's also been an educator. He's been working with children. And we are very excited to bring him on. So Andy Lee, are you ready for us?
Hello. Okay, so my story will be pretty serious, just a heads up. Yeah. Yeah, but I will mention some scenes of gun and knife violence and also misogyny and misogynistic violence. So, okay. What I will tell you was a dream. I arose from the floor at a school. The second I stood, I heard a booming clap. Then a series of them followed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I immediately knew. A shooting shocks one, and then it doesn't. I can't remember if I heard screams, but I know that I said to myself, "Oh God," in repetitions. I ran outside. The ground was sand. I and a number of others gathered, somehow, at an outdoor dining table. We were, I think, discussing our next move. A band of teenage boys ran out of the school carrying knives. I don't remember what they said, but they screamed at each other with looks of elation and anxiety. They ran toward us. We stayed. I don't know why. They attacked the woman sitting across from me. I don't wish to go further, for the details made me never want to think about this dream ever again. I wish it was one of those dreams I forget the moment I wake up. And yet, my mind returns to it, I think, because I need to confront the current moment when mass violence occurs and I am sickened by the surprise, but I am inured to it. How can I say that, of course, this has happened again? What can I actually do about it? The dream occurred days after the El Paso and Dayton shootings on August 3rd. In those days, I was reading a book called Jane by Maggie Nelson. It was a reflection on her Aunt Jane's murder, which was associated with a series of Michigan murder cases in which all the victims were women. I was also watching the 3rd season of Stranger Things, which seemed to me to be the bloodiest season so far, with a fight that ends in open wounds in almost every episode. Every day, I heard the simulated gunshots of a computer game that my middle school students played during free time. So of course, the dream did not come from nowhere. Like with the mass shootings that occur all too often, the terror, though seemingly random, stems from sources to which we can trace back. Every day, the boys I teach insult each other. During the game of Mafia, one said that whoever kills him is a woman. That same day, I came across an article that, in the wake of the El Paso and Dayton shootings, connects a common trait among mass killers: a hatred towards women. On occasion, the boys tease the girls. The boys yell at them when the girls do something that supposedly gets in their way. I shout back at the boys in the girls' defense, trying to teach them that aggression is not the way to express their frustration. Often they feel that a violent attitude provides the best relief. When I hear about a mass shooting, I ask whether I could be next. Whether I could be next at my workplace, where I would have to protect my students. The question comes regularly. If it were to happen right now in this building, would I be prepared? What would I do? Run, hide, fight, the drill said. Would I? Or would I freeze like in the dream? This, even as I ask myself how every day will I protect my students from each other. I wonder whether I can teach them how to treat one another when they mutter slurs under their breaths. I question whether I should permit them to play violent games when they play them under wraps. They're kids, they're having fun, they're learning. Am I a coward if I dread scolding them? When I stay silent, I wrestle between justifying it for my own sanity and regretting it. I feel a heavy burden of responsibility to teach them how to respect one another. If I don't, who will they become? Maybe they see a need to compensate for their own masculinity if they are Asian American boys who have been stereotyped as weak or emasculated. Maybe they have not been able to explore a masculinity that does not require one's own pain to be taken out on other people. When they lash out, do they learn what rebellion means? At the onset of adolescence, a time in life when it feels like everyone is against you, but you don't know why. All you know is that you feel confined, so you resort to the easiest way to break free. Is that rebellion, or is that selfishness? We all hurt. What matters is how to acknowledge the pain we cause each other, the pain others feel. We must be honest and accountable, and we must not reinforce a primary principle of toxic masculinity, that ignoring pain demonstrates strength. That ignorance then balloons until it explodes into violence. I once asked the boys, "Why are you all so mean to each other?" They looked at me with guilty faces. They seemed not to know themselves. Then one said, "Because it's funny." The rest agreed. I wrinkled my brow. Is humor the highest end, higher than compassion? Maybe it is when life at school, at home, and in your body makes no sense. The news constantly reminds you of global crisis. Your mind internalizes this and makes it parallel to the conflict in your own sense of self. It's funny, it's frustrating, it's frightening. I wasn't sure whether the boy even meant what he said, though I hoped that one day I could ask them all what funny really means to them. And I hoped that they could trust me when I said that words carry weight. And it's up to us to consider when words hurt others, such that the pain they induce becomes normal. And we feed the culture which has bred men to justify their violence through selfishness, thinly veiled as pleasure, survival, pessimism, among other things. Because it's funny, he said. I wrinkled my brow. I smirked at the strange answer. I can't say I was surprised. Okay, thank you.
Andy, is this your first time telling? Kind of. I was so hard on Andy on the story. He's like, come on, Andy, you got to revise the story. I feel terrible, but oh my goodness, you make me proud. Can we give Andy another applause? So much heart. Thank you so much. Coming to our final storyteller, Rebecca Ozaki, proud Japanese and Filipino American, born to a family full of artists and activists. Let's welcome Rebecca.
Oh, I'm tall enough. Great. Rare. Okay. This is my first time. I'm new to storytelling, so thank you for having me. I feel very seen right now, but a little bit braver and glad to be here with all of you. Okay. The year that I was born was the year my father declared war on the U.S. government. Yeah. It was the year my dad stopped paying his taxes. His civil disobedience that was a long time coming and somehow tied to my own birth. Because I was born and raised in his resistance, his battle became a part of me too. There's a saying by an old white man that the only things certain in life are death and taxes. I know people don't like to talk about that. That's what I'm going to talk about tonight. I think about both of these things more than most people, and my family has been transformed by both death and taxes. These are the truths I've always been told to keep within the family. I'm now realizing that there's power in sharing this story. So my brother's here too. Dad had a thick Chicago accent. He was born on the South Side, die-hard Sox fan. Yeah. The few of us. Always the loudest booing in the stands, and never was I more embarrassed, but I knew sometimes Dad liked to yell. My brothers and I were used to waking up in the middle of the night to music at 3 a.m. Mom playing Chopin on the piano, accompanied by Dad's voice reverberating through the house. Music, we knew, was their language, the way that they communicated best. Dad was a musician, a classical singer, and at times would use that identity as an explanation. We grew up hearing, he can't help it, he's an artist. One of my favorite memories with Dad was that time that Mom went to California for vacation and he let me adopt a cat while she was away. His name was Snip. He had a brown mustache. Mom loved that. She did not like animals at the time. As I got older, it really didn't matter what our conversation started with, because almost everything we talked about circled back to one of three things: music, cats, or Japanese American incarceration. Yes. Our shared language was justice, and especially after my grandfather died, Dad was the one who I could talk to about what happened to our family. To some extent, it consumed him. So in World War II, some of you know this story, at ages 14 and 17, basically still children, my grandparents were forced into American concentration camps. Grandpa told me about the day he came home from school. He was in high school, and he heard pounding on his front door. He and his siblings watched in terror as their father was taken away by the FBI agents carrying guns. No idea where he was going or if they would ever see him again. Their land, their belongings were stolen from them. Their families, my family, forever separated. They lost loved ones along with their farms, storefronts, homes that today would have been worth millions. Grandma lost her father just days before the prisons closed. So I understood why she didn't talk about the war that much. Yes, they physically survived, were resilient in the face of blatant racism and hate, and even used their experience as a civil rights lesson for future generations, including many conversations with me and my brothers, and in schools. We overcame oppression, didn't we? But that was just a lie that we were told that we couldn't afford to deny. The lie that was used to pit us against other communities of color that I've sat comfortably in for too long. After the war, for a while, to survive, we tried to assimilate and fade into whiteness until we couldn't be chameleons anymore. I now often think about what survival even means, because generations later, it feels like my family is barely surviving. We feel the effects of trauma inflicted upon our ancestors, and because of this, my father waged war. In the court case, Ozaki versus Commissioner, against the U.S. tax court, it states my dad claimed his mental illness was caused by failure of the U.S. government to acknowledge that the violation of constitutional and civil rights of Japanese Americans during World War II has debilitating and demoralizing effects on the child of U.S. concentration camp survivors. In 2003, as expected, they ruled that since he was able to exercise ordinary care when non-tax matters, the claimed mental illness does not constitute reasonable cause. But even after Dad lost the case, he wouldn't fold. While his fight to him was rooted in justice, ironically, it was one that slowly eroded our family, a ghost we couldn't escape even after incarceration. Growing up, I couldn't understand it. We talked about the war, about camps, but we never talked about mental health. Grandpa and Grandma held meetings for reparations in their living room on Toohey Avenue, but as I knew it, it was a conversation about justice, equality, about our rights, never about long-term impact on health, never about mental health. That part of the conversation had to be sacrificed, and for too long, for many communities of color, it has been. Growing up, I understood that Dad's tax evasion and the mental illness in our family are topics that, if spoken about above a whisper, could only bring shame. We were told to keep it in the family, to preserve our family. To not pay taxes was to be un-American. We are not safe if we are seen. It wasn't until near the end of my dad's life that I tried to understand why he did what he did. Why hold on to a battle he couldn't win? As I get older, I realize that this was his personal crusade, the only way he could think of to fight the system that tore our family apart. Even my grandfather said that in organizing for reparations for World War II, Japanese Americans must ask for money, he said. He said, money is what the government understands. It is the American way. White supremacy is fueled by capitalism. So to take back what they took from us, this was my father's reparations, his civil disobedience. And as an organizer, while I appreciate the poetry in his strategy, my siblings and I still inherited this anger, internalized pain, and above all, my family's desperate search for justice that doesn't seem to exist. It's been 2 years since Dad died. I think about him every day and miss our talks about what justice could be. I feel like I've aged a lifetime since then. And death, like taxes, are always on my mind, and cats too. In fact, the last time I saw my dad was when our cat Tiga was about to die. And the last time I talked to my dad and heard his voice was when he called me to invite me to go to an event in Alphawood Gallery about intergenerational trauma. He died a few days later from a spontaneous intercerebral hemorrhage. Bleeding of the brain. I believe that his stress and anger towards the government manifested in the erosion of his health, of his mind and his body. Until at the age of 61, after finally speaking his truth, he was set free. I can't help but think it must have been a lonely battle, and that by finally speaking to his community about it, that brought him peace. I also have to share that miraculously, while my dad moved on, Tiga survived, and the cat, and he's still alive today. My mom says that Dad's spirit went into the cat, and the cat lives on, yes. Yeah. So it's remarkable how much death really puts life into perspective. It's revealed so much as we shift to fill the empty spaces. We are living in dark times. And for a while, I put all of my energy into what I perceived as the only ways to continue my family's fight. I became a community organizer, a social worker. I tried to show up for everything, for everyone. In my family, as a middle child and only girl with 3 brothers, I've been the peacemaker, a lot of emotional labor, the one called to intervene because they'll listen to you. The past few years, I've retreated into myself to survive, I'd say. And in my dad's life and in his death, he taught me many things. And above all, I finally recognized that I deserve to take care of myself, to protect my energy. That, like my dad, what I need, and a lot of us probably need, is to take a rest, because sometimes our mind and our bodies need that, right? So I'm privileged to be able to take time to take a rest while I know others are not, and I felt a lot of guilt in this for a while, taking a break. But I realized with the help of friends and family that it's not selfish to take time to heal, right? I've been inspired by my family. I've shifted my focus to healthcare to fight for healthcare for all. Healthcare is a human right, to address mental health, intergenerational trauma, long-term care, and a job that allows me to have boundaries from emotional labor that I'm used to. I know my family is tired too, and I feel us trying to hold on to one another. I've never been more thankful for them, my brothers especially, for the fact that now, finally, as adults, after Dad's death, we can have critical conversations about the world, our family, and what's starting to emerge after generations is that we're starting to talk about what it means for us to heal. We talk about mental health more openly. We're more intentional about having each other's backs. And each of us has survival mechanisms, ways we choose to protect ourselves, ways we choose to fight. And a lot of people here have been fighting since birth, right? For survival. For my dad, he found some revelation in tax resistance. I hear there's a movement now around tax resistance as well. And in his absence, I want to be able to continue his fight, starting by taking care of myself, through rest, through healing, through recognizing that I'm not in this alone. And I hope that as a community, we can try to heal together, so we can stop this cycle of oppression for our future generations. In these times, I don't think there's anything more radical than healing. So thank you all.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I want to say several years ago, I remembered Rebecca speaking at the Asian American Leadership Forum Conference. And I remembered that her presentation so well that I hadn't seen her until this year at the Incapi event, and she was like, "Hey, Randy, what's going on?" And I said, "You know, I think you should tell a story. Let me grab Ada real quick." And then here she told her story. So I want to say thank you so much for sharing your story. Give it another round of applause for Rebecca.
Rico. Really, this stuff is just a formality. Welcome to Canada. Have some healthcare.
I'm just like, you just don't look like, you just, okay, wait. How do I put this, like, politically correct? You just don't look like an ancient celestial dragon. You know, usually it's, you know.
I would say that's unbelievable, but I get that a lot. Okay, I don't have the smoke and the wings and all that stuff, but believe me.
You're not even, like, serpentine.
It's a new dragon for a new millennium, my friend. It's life now.
Oh.
Welcome. You have any wishes? I do wishes. Oh my God, I love this museum. Look at this one, look at this. All this white space. What do you think it means? What do you think it means?
You know, I know exactly what it means. Okay, the artist was a colorist, and they put color everywhere.
Oh.
And then the white space really draws out everything.
Oh,
you know?
amazing. I love
the
that.
white space.
Cool.
Yeah, I think is the most
Let me
important
see if I can find the artist statement somewhere.
It's right there. Read it out.
This is just the wall.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful.
Oh, they're cookies! Oh! Cookies!
Oh, this museum has everything. I tell you, man, I love going to museums. Yeah, you, sir. Please. Will you go get him? Yeah, you down the line. You, yeah.
Yeah, this way. He was. He asked me to get you and your parents.
Yeah, you are done. You know that?
Dunzo.
Finito.
Out of here.
Buongiorno and bueno noches.
Goodbye.
You are donezo.
Yeah. Xin chào.
Oh, xin chào. Oh, God, I love that. What was that one?
You just called me up here, so I don't. Why do I have to say goodbye? I got here. I'm here for a good time.
Yeah, xin chào means goodbye in Vietnamese. God damn, I love that. Xin chào. All right, that means you're done. Okay, it means you're out.
I'm getting that vibe. Yeah,
you're out. Yeah, I'm totally getting that. Totally getting that vibe. I mean, I swear, I know that it's my last year to get an arranged marriage, but I just want to give it a shot. Okay, can you just, either of you, just give me a shot.
I'm a celestial dragon. Granted.
Welcome to Lakeview! Oh my God!
You know it took me 3 hours to get here, right? It took me 3 hours. I'm starving. Where's the food?
I'm feeling that gap in our friendship widening again.
Bro, you promised me brunch. It's 4 o'clock. Where is brunch?
We do things differently in Lakeview.
You know what? You changed, man. We graduated college, we moved to Chicago together, and then I went to Pilsen and I became cool. But you...
Wow.
What? I'm an artist now, man.
You know what you are? You're a gentrifier. Yeah, I said it.
What?
Yeah, I said it.
No way.
How many Vietnamese are in Pilsen? Just you!
How many Vietnamese are in Lakeview?
2 of us! We're out of time.
Thank you so much for can I have all the performers come to you. Thank you so much for being here. This is our show. I want to thank the Chinese American Museum of Chicago for hosting us, and thank you everyone for being here. Invite us to your space. This is about community gathering. Let's get together. Let's tell our stories. This is important, particularly at this point in time in our history. Tell your stories. Talk to your people. Talk to your friends. Tell stories to each other. That's how we stay together. Good night. Thank you, everybody.
Give it up for Ada!